All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Abhilash Juluri. I'm a senior solution architect with AWS, and I work with the public sector and state and local governments to accelerate their cloud adoption. And today, my topic is to give you some idea about what public sector is up to, right? What are some of the common themes that we are seeing across the industry? And I want to go through a case study, an interesting case study on migrations, right? So whoever wants to adopt cloud, right, have to start with migration. So I want to give you some peek into like what are some of the things that you want to watch out when you're doing large scale migrations. Let's get started. Are you curious to know, right, which customer segments to change the most in next few years? Do you see anything common here? And customers, while infrastructure, security, and compliance and resilience are the bedrocks for everything IT, here are the future technologies that our customers said they are prioritizing. They want agility, they want elasticity, security, and ability to innovate faster, yet save on costs. And along with what Reiko team has just said, right, ransomware attacks and with security, right? So it's becoming more and more significant in public sector industry and on small scale and large scale events as well. And there are many different drivers, right? So some are latest and hottest, right? But there are some different drivers for customers like you to initiate a journey to cloud. You're driven by compelling events such as cost objective, or could be target dates to exit and consolidate your data centers, or end of life hardware and software. And this is not new, right? But the conversation is changing. Board of directors expect more than just cost savings and efficiency, even though customers are achieving 25 to 50% savings in AWS versus your on-prem costs. They want to be able to move faster and transform your customer experiences. And they want to deliver digital transformations and modernize the businesses. And they want to reinvest cost savings to drive new innovations and business models. So it's not like any public sector anymore. They want to operate like a commercial business, right? They want to innovate faster. They want to accelerate migrations to cloud computing so that they can save on costs and use that saved cost for innovating in the cloud. An AWS Migration Acceleration Program, simply called as MAP, is a comprehensive and proven cloud migration program based upon AWS experience with migrating thousands of enterprise customers to the cloud. Enterprise migrations can be complex and time-consuming, right? But MAP can help you to accelerate your cloud migration and modernization journey with an outcome-driven methodology. So I'm going to start a case study, right? And again, I stripped off many details given the time constraint that we all have, right? So I'll be focusing on highlights and some of the best practices that you might want to consider if you're thinking about any migration project. So we think it would be easy to walk you through key milestones, right? So of a large migration project. And I'll be focusing on that for the rest of the presentation. So for any migration, right, you want to think about what you need to do before migration, during the migration, and post-migration. Migrations can be hard. What we learned is if you need to migrate, right, it's always good to start early, right? Start thinking about what are the tools available, right? What are the applications or what are the workloads that you want to migrate? And what is the footprint that you want to migrate? How large is it going to be? Do you have all the necessary tools in order to succeed with your migration efforts? Here are some of the accelerators, right? One of our large customers have used. One is they have focused on establishing a landing zone in AWS, which acts as a secure foundation following AWS best practices for single or multi-account architectures. And you want to understand, let's say, for example, customer, in this specific case, this customer is on VMware. So they want to understand their VMware infrastructure, like how big is it, right? How many servers are involved? How many applications? What are the dependencies? How many databases? How much of data, right? And what's the traffic is going to look like between those applications, whatnot. And prepare cloud operations team on the customer side. You want to prepare your team, right, with all this information so that they know what they're tackling. And it's important for that this customer has established a quick communication channels for all the dependencies, including AWS and your network connectivity. I'll speak about that in a bit. But along with all the dependencies and along with your internal teams, right? Establishing that quick communication channel so that you can quickly unblock yourself when you're going through any migration. And there is no single migration which goes very smooth, right? We know that. And it's IT, right? Everything could fail anytime. Now, you want to focus on enabling your internal teams with different trainings, immersion days, or workshops, what AWS can offer in order to enable you so that you understand all the services you are operating once you move to the cloud. And most critical thing is having an executive sponsorship, like C-level support for the overall migration effort, like CTO or CIOs joining the regular engineering calls to get an assessment, like how things are moving, right? Is there anything to unblock, right? And accelerate the migration by providing necessary resources and by reaching out to your key contacts on AWS side or other vendor side to make sure that teams are unblocked and they have a nice ramp to go forward with acceleration and migrations. So in this, this is a snapshot of our customer infrastructure, right? So they have over 350 applications. Out of them, 270 are mission critical, and 3,500 physical servers, including bare metal and VMware VMs, right? And overall, we are looking at 4 petabytes of customer data, right? And out of all, the biggest constraint or biggest requirement that we have for this customer, which I can't name, is there is no downtime allowed as the migrations are going, right? It's a tough task. Now, this is before any migration, right? Like I keep saying, like you want to assess your infrastructure. And what are the tools available to help you with assessment? Do you use any CMDB services, right? Content management, any of the tools to give you a repository or inventory of all your servers and applications. You can also use AWS tools like Migration Evaluator and Application Discovery Service for this. One pro tip I want to show you is you want to export, when you use Migration Evaluator, you want to export the evaluator results into what we call as a migration hub to save those results so that you can visualize your networks, dependencies, all the applications. It gives you a single pane of glass visibility for your migration efforts. The assessment includes, typically the assessment phase includes a series of questions like a survey, right? And interactive activities conducted as a one-day workshop with you. And this basically helps you to align with the leadership teams. What is the vision, right? And is it aligning with it? And consensus on decision interdependency, and also helps you to identify any gaps and gives you assessment over your readiness towards migration. And as a result, an action plan and a proposal to close the gaps and accelerate the next phase of adoption, right? And all this information can be basically part of your assessment. And an example snapshot is going to be like this, right? So an example report can be like this, and it gives you an idea about like what is the education and organization enablement wise, like what are all the key roles played and which projects where we are. It gives you very good idea about your overall migration project. Now let's talk about migration. Before, for any migration to succeed, right, you want to consider, you want to think about your network connectivity. Do you have good network connectivity? And if not, then establishing that is going to be an essential first few steps of your migration project. And here, in this case, customer has established a network connectivity with region as shown in this picture, right? And again, pro tip here, whenever you hear direct connect, right, that's basically allows you to have a dedicated line between your on-prem infrastructure and AWS regions. Now, whenever you want to establish that dedicated line, right, it is important to have direct contacts of your ISP, CSMs, or their direct connect location engineers who can help you build direct connect links in 1 to 3 weeks rather than in months. we heard from our customers like, oh, establishing a direct connect can take lots of weeks, but there are ways to accelerate that. Have key contacts in your back pocket and use them, right? And take help from AWS and how we can help you accelerate having that direct connect. And next, ensure that you establish a task force, right? Joining your teams along with the AWS teams. AWS tech specialists managed by your account SA. For every account, you have an account SA, an account manager, right? And use them, right? Use them to get associated specialized SAs. Like for instance, if you're talking about like VMC migration, right? Then you want to have VMware specialist SAs assigned for your task in your task force, and also migration specialist SAs or networking specialists, right? Security specialists, right? So identify which specializations that you need in order to help you succeed in your migration, right? And make sure you have them available, right? Have their contacts available throughout the migration project. And VMware, right? In order to enable fast migration of on-prem VMware infrastructure, right? You can use VMware Cloud on AWS with or VMC on AWS, right? It's a short word. So whenever you are considering VMC on AWS, right, what happens is like your ops team your ops team will feel comfortable knowing that, right, this infrastructure or the tool set that they're going to use is going to be consistent on AWS. It's just that it runs on AWS. Other than that, they're still going to operate using AWS VMware tooling, right? That makes transition a little bit easier. Now, if customers have VMware infrastructure, make sure you take the necessary trainings and do POCs on VMC on AWS. This obviously lets the ops team get familiar with what the additional setup that you need to do on top of VMware to make sure that they're comfortable operating that environment in production. And VMC, it runs on specific instance types like i3, i3EN, and i4i. Now, whenever you're planning for this migration, right, one of the pro tip here is be aware that not all availability zones may have capacity to run all the instances that you might need, right? So it is important for you to work with the AWS team to ensure that you have enough capacity reserved so that when you need those instances, they are available to you, right? So work with your team, work with your AWS team to help them identify which AZs are better fit for your required capacity. And capacity reservation, like I said, it enables you to reserve the capacity for your specific Amazon EC2 instances in a specific AZ for any given duration. Now, so let's talk about financial support. Right? Migration Acceleration Program is a comprehensive and a proven cloud migration program based on AWS experience, migrating thousands of enterprise customers to the cloud. Enterprise migrations can be complex and time-consuming, but MAP can help you to accelerate your cloud migration journey and modernization journey with an outcome-driven methodology. MAP provides tools that reduce costs and automate and accelerate execution, tailored training approaches and content. It also provides you expertise from special teams called like a professional services, or we also have a global partner ecosystem, right? If you already have a partner that you're working with, then see if they have the ability to use migration acceleration program to help you migrate. Through MAP, you can build strong AWS cloud foundations, accelerate and reduce risk, and offset the initial cost of configurations, initial cost of migration. And leverage the performance and security and reliability of the cloud. Right? You can begin your cloud migration journey using MAP as soon as today, right? And check with your account team that whenever you are on set to a new migration project, check with your account team to see if you are eligible for any credits, right? That can offset some of the costs for your migration.
And Abhilash, one
yes.
other thing, I'm going to ask you to summarize here as we want to keep things moving quickly. We have so much good content, very useful. The other point I just want to emphasize, I'm not sure it came out, if you're a smaller municipality, educational entity, you may not have experts in all the areas that Abhilash was referring to. The good thing working with AWS, they can provide experts within AWS to help address all the issues to ensure maybe you're a local city that doesn't have the same resources as one of the largest universities to do these migrations. AWS can
Absolutely.
fill in experts internally within AWS to help augment that to ensure your migration, your modernization goes smoothly. But I'm going to ask you to summarize now before we turn it over to Srini.
Sounds good. Yeah. So I just want to show you one last slide here. For those who are curious to know what is a typical distribution for migration framework. So if you're not familiar with 7Rs, just search it up. 7Rs are different migration strategies available. Depends on your workload. Every workload is unique. So it helps you to identify what it would be applied for your workload. And this is the typical distribution for your 7Rs, right? So again, you will get the copies of these slides. So I don't want to go through it now since I'm reaching end of time. And I want to quickly summarize some of the lessons here, right? Customers on VMware infrastructure should train on VMC so that your teams are comfortable operating VMC environments in AWS. And again, careful migration planning makes a migration a lot cheaper, right? And having a proper landing zone, secure foundations on AWS will help you to have a solid base. On top of it, you can have your workloads running. And again, don't forget about capacity planning and making sure you have reservations for your specific EC2 instances. And again, finally, this is the point that Ron just talked about. There are hundreds of people in AWS that can help you. You just have to reach out, right? Thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to hear your questions.